I can turn into a fish. Chapter 46, Raimolding himself. While sitting in his car, Chu Xian reflected on everything that just happened, filling his body with residual fear. Just a little bit more. If the moray eel had been just a little stronger, he might already be dead. These creatures are terrifying. If I encountered something poisonous, I would probably have no hope, Chu Xian thought to himself. Throughout the battle, Chu Xian discovered he was still weak. In just a simple lake connected to the sea, he almost failed at an easy task, but Chu Xian consoled himself with his bad luck. A random moray eel showed up in a fish farm and attacked him. This ability is shit. Chu Xian thought to himself with a bitter smile. Strangle, it allowed him to focus all his strength in a grip and also increased his flexibility, but even then, wrapping his body around other fish would be impossible. But my body has still become incredibly flexible. Chu Xian thought. After he changed back into a human, he immediately felt the change in his body, and he could now easily do the splits or bend backwards into a bridge. He was more flexible than those gymnasts and yoga teachers. Back home, Chu Xian lay down on his bed and reflected back on the battle. From the start he was completely passive and was pretty much just a target to be abused. If he didn't have the control ability, he might have died then and there. I might look strong and ferocious, but in real battles, I can't actually fight. All I have are some sharp teeth, but every other part of me is weak. I can't deal with flexible creatures, and if I encounter them, all I can do is run. I don't even know whether I can run away successfully. Chu Xian flipped in his bed, unable to sleep as he thought about all kinds of random things. The battle really depressed him. Raimold. I will Raimold my body tomorrow. Chu Xian decided. This was his soul system ability, and from beginning to end, he always used it on ornamental fish. Although it decreased his level, Chu Xian needed to strengthen his combat ability. The next morning, Chu Xian ate a little and thought about how he would Raimold himself. Thinking about his current figure with a huge mouth, sharp teeth, and a tight armor of dark scales, he couldn't help but think of its faults. All I can do is bite, everything else is useless. Should I change into something like a yellow catfish? With sharp bony spurs? Or should I make myself into something with a tortoise shell to hide when in danger? Or transform myself into a hedgehog? Or lengthen myself into some kind of snake? Chu Xian pondered his choices carefully. His level would be lowered after each Raimold, so he had to plan thoroughly. Transform. Chu Xian thought, examining himself. The part underneath his head shrank until it was the width of an arm and his tail grew bigger and heavier with scales shining as if it were metal. The transformation could not create something out of nothing and also couldn't waste. Looking over the leftover flesh and bone, Chu Xian inserted them into his head and his head expanded and grew, growing to the size of a wash basin. Chu Xian examined his head and slowly extended out two lobster-like claws and encased his head with a bony shell. Chu Xian experimented and folded in his whole body underneath the bony shell. With a mere thought, the body could snap out and swing around, either wrapping around a victim in a strangling motion or whipping around like a steel pole. Confirm Raimold. Chu Xian thought. Immediately, his body froze and transformed into a monster. If his shape had been ferocious before, now it was just terrifying and creepy. The head was as big as a basketball with sharp teeth peeking out of its huge mouth. Two claws extended next to the eyes, completing the monster head. A long and slim body about 70 cm long was about as thick as a human arm. It was pale as if covered in hard bone. Any gentle wave had huge range and flexibility, and the body was capped off with a fanned-out tail covered in scales, thumping the water gently. Name, Chu Xian. Status, fish, can transform into a human. Level, 15, newborn little fish, 1.3 m. Combat power, 125. Ability, devour, can evolve from eating smaller fish. Control, can control lower leveled fish. Strangle, can use body to wrap around enemy. Big fish eat little fish system ability. Ramold, can change the shape of self or fish under your control. Every transformation will lower your level and the level of the fish you control. After Ramolding, Chu Xian dropped a level and was now 10 centimeters shorter, but if he sucked in his body, he looked only 40 or 50 centimeters long. If I met the moray eel again, I could kill it easily. I didn't change my mouth because of the convenience of eating and attacking, and anyway, the claws can attack enemies from the side. The slim body can use the strangle ability easily, and if I meet any shark-like creature, I can hide inside the bony shell. The scaly tail can push me forward and can also attack. No matter what I encounter, I can fight back. The only weakness is the hardness of the body, so I'll need to strengthen that in the future.